front desk told me the motel was empty. That didn't explain the children laughing outside my door. I didn't stop there because I wanted to. I stopped because I ran out of reasons to keep driving. I was heading east on I-40, somewhere between Kingman and Flagstaff. The kind of stretch where the road feels endless and the desert presses in from all sides. It had been raining for hours. Not a real storm, just that thin, annoying desert rain that smears your windshield and makes you feel more tired than you already are. I'd had the same sports podcast playing for most of the drive, not really listening, just letting voices fill the silence. I hadn't written anything in 6 months, not a page, not a paragraph. I kept telling people I was between projects, which was a polite way of saying I sat in front of a blank document every night and felt nothing. No spark, no urgency, just this slow, creeping fear that maybe whatever made me a writer had finally burned out. The motel sign appeared out of the dark like it had been waiting for me. Noon Motel. The neon flickered, the first N cutting in and out, so it read "oon" more often than not. It was almost 9 at night. The name bothered me for reasons I couldn't explain. Still, my foot eased off the gas before I made a conscious decision. There was nothing else around. No chain hotels, no fast food, just black desert, wet asphalt, and that buzzing sign humming to itself. The motel was one story, stretched into a wide U-shape around an empty parking lot. No cars, not a single one. That should have been a warning, but instead it felt like relief. Empty meant quiet. Quiet meant I wouldn't have to deal with anyone. I parked and sat there for a moment, listening to the rain taper off. The silence that followed felt heavy, like the air itself had weight. The office smelled like burnt coffee and industrial cleaner. A girl sat behind the counter, early 20s maybe, hair pulled back, wearing a college hoodie that had seen better days. She looked tired in a deep, permanent way, like this place drained people slowly. "Room?" she asked. "Yeah, one night," I said. "Somewhere quiet." She typed for a few seconds, then nodded. "You're the only guest tonight." She said it flat, like a fact, but she held eye contact just a second longer than necessary. She handed me a key card and pointed down the row. "Room 12, end unit." Of course it was. Room 12 sat at the far corner, tucked away, like it wanted to be forgotten. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was exactly what you'd expect from a roadside motel. Faded bedspread, stiff carpet, a lamp that cast a dull yellow glow, and a TV bolted to the wall like it was afraid of running away. The AC rattled when I turned it on, then settled into a low, uneven hum. It smelled like laundry detergent and old fabric. Nothing about it felt threatening. If anything, it felt tired. I dropped my bag, sat on the edge of the bed, and felt my shoulders loosen for the first time all day. I ordered a pizza from the nearest town, ate it straight from the box, and flipped through channels with the sound low. When I opened my laptop and saw the blank page staring back at me, I shut it again without thinking. Tonight wasn't about work. It was about sleep. That was when I heard the noise. At first, I assumed it was a TV through the wall. Low voices, muffled, normal motel stuff. Then I heard a laugh, high and quick, a kid. I froze with the pizza box still open on my lap and listened. A woman's voice followed, calm but tired. The tone parents use when they're trying to keep things under control. Then another laugh, younger this time. I frowned. The girl at the desk had said I was alone. People make mistakes. That's what I told myself. Still, something about it didn't sit right. The sound didn't feel distant, like noise bleeding through a wall. It felt close. Too close. I stood up and walked to the door without really deciding to. I crouched and looked at the gap beneath it. At first, it was dark. Then something moved. Small feet, bare. Toes slightly curled, like they were standing on cold concrete. They stopped just inches from my door and didn't move. My stomach tightened. I stood up too fast and backed away. My brain scrambled for explanations. Kid waiting to be let back inside. Timeout. Bathroom trip. Normal things. Totally normal things. The voices stopped. No footsteps. No talking. Just silence. I lay down fully dressed, staring at the ceiling, telling myself I was exhausted and imagining things. But even with my eyes closed, I could still hear something faint. Slow footsteps, back and forth, like someone pacing a small room, counting their steps. And that was when I realized I wasn't going to sleep at all. I kept telling myself to calm down. Motels are weird. Sounds carry in ways they shouldn't. Families roll in late. Kids cry. Walls are thin enough that you hear things you were never meant to hear. None of that was new to me. My body didn't care. I lay on the bed, staring up at the ceiling, tracking the cracks in the paint, listening to the footsteps next door. They weren't fast. They weren't playful. Just steady, deliberate pacing, back and forth along the shared wall, like someone had nowhere else to go. Then came a knock, not on my door. 3 soft knocks on the door next to mine. A pause. Then the woman's voice again, lower now, tighter. I couldn't make out the words, just the strain in them. The sound of someone trying to stay in control. A second later, a kid started crying, sharp and sudden. It cut straight through me. Then it stopped, too abruptly, like it had been shut off. I checked my phone. 11:17 p.m. Late, but not insane. Everything still technically fit into the box labeled normal, even if it was starting to press hard against the edges. I sat up. The room felt quieter than before. Even the AC sounded distant, like it was running in another building. I got out of bed and moved toward the door again, slower this time. I crouched and looked under it. A thin strip of yellow light stretched across the carpet. And there were feet again. Same size, small, bare. Standing just outside the neighboring door. They didn't shift, didn't fidget, didn't rock from heel to toe like kids usually do. They just stood there. I held my breath without realizing it. My heartbeat felt loud enough to echo. I waited for an adult voice to say something, for the door to open, for the kid to move. Nothing happened. After a long, awful stretch of time, I stood up and backed away. My skin crawled with that specific kind of dread that comes from seeing something that doesn't quite make sense. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to laugh it off, but the sound came out thin and forced. I lay back down and turned toward the wall, facing away from the door. If I couldn't see it, maybe my brain would shut up. It didn't. About half an hour later, the noise came back, louder this time. More voices, kids running, bare feet slapping against the floor. Something light tipped over. The woman's voice snapped, sharp with frustration. I still couldn't understand the words, but the emotion came through clear enough. I rolled onto my back and checked the gap again. The light was gone. No feet. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Maybe that was it. Maybe the kid had finally been pulled inside. Maybe the night was settling down. That should have been the moment I grabbed my bag and left, thrown everything in the car, and driven until I found a gas station with lights and people. But exhaustion pressed me into the mattress. The thought of getting back on that dark stretch of highway made my chest tighten. Instead, I pulled on my jacket and stepped outside. The rain had stopped. The air was cold and smelled like wet asphalt and dust. The parking lot lights buzzed softly. I walked a few steps and stared at the door of the neighboring room. Closed, no light underneath. I stood there feeling ridiculous, telling myself I was letting stress get the better of me. I turned to head back, and something hit the door from the inside. Not a slam, a solid, dull thud, like someone leaning their weight into it. My hand froze halfway up, about to knock. I dropped it and took a step back. That was when I knew something was wrong. Whatever was happening in that room didn't want company. I locked my door when I got back inside. Not dramatically, just a quick turn of the lock, the kind you do without thinking. Still, my hands were shaking when I pulled them back. The room felt different now. Not dangerous, just wrong. Like the air had shifted while I was outside. I stood there for a moment, listening. Nothing from next door, no voices, no footsteps. Just that heavy padded silence that presses on your ears. I turned the TV back on and flipped through channels, local news, infomercials, a sitcom with a laugh track that made my skin crawl. Every burst of canned laughter made my shoulders tense, waiting for a real one to answer from the other side of the wall. Sometime after 2, I must have drifted off. I woke to footsteps, not kids this time. These were heavier, slower, the kind of steps you feel in your chest more than you hear. They moved along the shared wall, back and forth, stopping now and then, like whoever it was listening. I sat up in the dark, heart pounding. Something scraped along the wall. Slow, deliberate, like a fingernail dragged across paint. I swallowed and looked toward the door. A thin line of light leaked in under it, flickering like the lamp next door. Couldn't decide whether to stay on. Then I saw movement. Adult-sized feet passed by the gap. Slippers this time. They moved past my door and disappeared. Sleep was over. Morning came gray and heavy, clouds hanging low over the desert. I showered without really feeling the water, got dressed, and headed for the office. I wasn't going to accuse anyone. I just needed confirmation that I wasn't losing it. The girl at the front desk was there again. Same hoodie, same tired eyes. But when she saw me, something in her expression tightened. "Morning," I said. "I think there's been a mix-up. The room next to mine wasn't empty last night. There was a family. Kids." She stopped typing. "What room are you in?" she asked. 12. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. "There's no one next to you," she said. "There hasn't been." "I heard them," I said. "I saw light. I saw people." She glanced past me, out at the empty parking lot. "I've worked here 3 months," she said carefully. "That end of the building stays empty. People don't like the corner rooms." "So you're saying I imagined it?" She hesitated. "Old buildings carry sound," she said finally, "especially at night." It sounded practiced. I left without replying, my stomach tight. I was already planning to check out early when I noticed the laundry room off to the side. The door was cracked open. Inside, the air smelled like damp cloth and dust. A crooked corkboard hung on the wall, layered with faded notices. One of them stood out. Yellowed newsprint pinned with a rusted thumbtack. I stepped closer. The headline mentioned a fire. A motel fire. This motel. The date sat at the bottom of the clipping. 15 years ago. I didn't read the rest, because right then, just behind me, I heard a soft, familiar sound. A child's laugh. Close enough to make my skin prickle. And in that moment, I knew without any doubt that someone had been in the room next to mine. And they knew I'd been listening. I stood there staring at the clipping longer than I should have. The paper was thin and brittle, yellowed to the color of old teeth. The headline was faded, but the words still punched through. Late night motel. Fire. Family of 4. My eyes drifted to the photo beneath it without my permission. A man, a woman, 2 kids. I didn't recognize their faces, but my stomach dropped anyway. 4 people. 4 voices. It lined up too neatly, and I hated my brain for noticing. I turned around fast. The laundry room was empty, just the low hum of a dryer somewhere in the back, and a flickering fluorescent light that buzzed like an insect. No laughter, no movement, nothing. I backed out of there and walked straight to my room, my pulse hammering like I'd been caught snooping where I wasn't supposed to. That was it. I was done. I didn't care about the money or the drive. I was packing up and leaving. I started shoving things into my bag. Clothes went in crooked, barely folded. The zipper snagged, and I swore under my breath, yanking it harder than I needed to. Every few seconds, I glanced at the door, half expecting the handle to turn on its own. That's when I noticed how warm it felt. The AC was still running, but the air in the room was thick, almost sticky, like the heat you feel when you open an oven too early. I checked the thermostat. Normal. I held my hand up to the vent. Cold air brushed my fingers. It didn't help. Then the smell hit me again. Faint at first, easy to dismiss if you wanted to. Burnt toast, electrical, smoke. My chest tightened. A thin yellow line appeared under the door. I froze, staring at it as it slowly stretched across the carpet. On the other side of the wall, footsteps started up again. Close. Then a man's voice, low, worn down. The kind of voice that's used all its patience already. A kid started crying. Then another. I stepped back, heart racing, denial finally cracking apart. This wasn't sound carrying. This wasn't exhaustion. This was happening. I yanked the door open and stepped outside. The parking lot was empty. Quiet. Too quiet. The sky was still gray, the sun hidden behind low clouds. I walked straight to the neighboring door before I could lose my nerve and knocked. 3 times. Nothing. I knocked again, harder. "Hey," I said. "You okay in there?" Something shifted on the other side. A soft shuffle, then silence. I leaned closer, and that's when I heard it. Breathing. Slow. Heavy. Right on the other side of the door, like someone was standing there with their forehead pressed to the wood. "Who's there?" I asked. No answer, just breathing. Then a faint metallic sound. Something sliding across the lock. Careful. Curious. I staggered back, every nerve screaming. That was the moment it stopped feeling strange and started feeling deliberate. Whatever was in that room wasn't just there. It was aware of me. I don't know how long I sat there after that. Time stopped working the way it should. At some point, my phone was in my hand. Screen dark, my thumb hovering like it might move on its own. Call the front desk. Call the cops. Call anyone. Every option collapsed the second I tried to picture the conversation. What would I even say? There's a family next door that doesn't exist. I smell smoke, but nothing's burning. I could already hear the pause on the other end. The questions, the tone, the footsteps came back, not next door. Outside my room, slow, heavy, spaced out like whoever was walking had all the time in the world. I stood and crept toward the door, pressing my ear against it. The concrete under my bare feet was cold, and that detail stuck with me, like my brain was grabbing onto something solid to keep from floating off. The steps stopped right in front of my door. Nothing happened for a beat. Then the knob turned. Not fast, not aggressive, just enough to test it. Locked. I stumbled backward, my heart slamming so hard it made my vision blur. And then everything went dark. The lights cut out. The AC died mid-rattle. The TV let out a short electronic click and went silent. The sudden quiet was crushing. And the smell, God, the smell, smoke, thick and bitter, filled the room, coating my throat. I bolted for the bathroom. I slammed the door, locked it, and slid down onto the tile between the tub and the toilet. The space was barely big enough for me. My knees were pulled tight to my chest. I was shaking so hard my teeth chattered. On the other side of the door, I heard them. More than one set of footsteps, adult, then lighter ones, smaller, breathing layered over breathing. A kid sniffled. Another let out a soft, excited giggle. Something leaned against the bathroom door. Not a hit. Pressure. The door bowed inward slightly. I clamped a hand over my mouth, terrified my breathing would give me away. The air felt thick and hot now, like it was being cooked. Fingers slid down the door. Slow. Scraping. Nails dragging across cheap wood. A woman's voice spoke, soft, calm, almost kind, the kind of voice used to get kids to sleep. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was wrong, too smooth, too practiced. The pressure eased. Then came a gentle tap, once, twice, like they were checking. Then a child's voice, right by the lock. "He's in here." No fear, no excitement, just a statement. Somewhere deep in the building, a smoke alarm chirped once. Weak, tired, then went silent again. The doorknob began to turn, slowly. I stared at it, frozen, understanding in that moment that they weren't in a hurry. They didn't need to be. They had nowhere else to go. The knob didn't finish turning. It stopped halfway, like whoever was holding it had decided to wait. I stayed frozen on the bathroom floor, my back pressed hard against the tub, every muscle locked. I don't know how long I sat there like that, staring at the door, waiting for the click that never came. Then the pressure vanished. Footsteps moved away, slow, unrushed, more than one set. They crossed the room like they had all the time in the world. The smell of smoke lingered, thick but no longer growing, like a fire that had already burned through everything it wanted. Silence followed, deep and unnatural. After a while, the lights flickered back on. The bulb above the sink buzzed weakly, struggling, then steadied. The AC kicked in again with a tired rattle. Everything sounded wrong, like the room was pretending nothing had happened. I didn't move right away. My legs had gone numb. When I finally stood and cracked the bathroom door open, the room looked untouched. The bed was neat. My bag sat where I dropped it. The door to the hallway was still locked, but the door to the room next to mine was open. Just a few inches. That was it. I didn't think. I didn't plan. I went straight for the window, shoved it open, and climbed out. The early morning air hit me hard, cold, clean, real. Birds were starting to make noise somewhere nearby. Dawn was bleeding into the sky, pale and gray. I didn't look back. I crossed the parking lot at a jog, dropped my keys, swore, picked them up. Every second I expected to hear footsteps behind me. A laugh, a voice, but there was nothing. Just my own breathing and the hum of the highway in the distance. I pulled out onto the road and didn't slow down until the motel was gone from the mirror, swallowed by distance and daylight. An hour later, I stopped for gas. That's when I found the newspaper clipping in my jacket pocket. I don't remember taking it. I read it standing by the pump, hands still shaking. Fire started late at night, 'cause undetermined. Family of 4 pronounced dead at the scene. I folded it up and left it on top of the trash can. I made it home. A few months later, I moved. New place, new locks, new routines. The book never got written. Whatever I lost out there on that stretch of road didn't come back with me. Sometimes, late at night, my apartment feels too warm, even in winter. Sometimes, I catch the faintest hint of smoke, gone the second I notice it. And every night, before I go to bed, I check the floor by the door, just to be sure there's no light underneath, because a couple of times now, I could swear there was.